With David Lee Roth on vocals and Eddie Van Halen on guitar, Van Halen jumped into the music scene in the late 70s. But just a few years later, Roth jumped right out of the band as they peaked. Here's why David Lee Roth really left Van Halen. When you have a band named after you like Eddie Van Halen does, you probably want to have a say in the direction your group is headed in. That became more and more clear as the band's popularity surged. Roth wanted to keep things loose and fun, while Eddie wanted to become more diverse and music-oriented. The friction really came to a head during the tour for their massive hit album 1984. Once Roth departed, the barbs flew. When Eddie discovered that Roth was working on a movie prior to his Van Halen departure, he publicly said, "Dave left to be a movie star." He also revealed that Roth even boldly asked if Eddie would write a film score for him, so it's probably fair to say that being in a band with Eddie Van Halen may not always be rainbows and sunshine.
For Edward and I, there is a lot of whatever that chemical is in guys.
When Van Halen toured in 1978 as Black Sabbath's opener, they were on the upcrest of their meteoric rise. Sabbath, however, was declining, both musically and physically. Drugs were partly to blame. What Van Halen could have learned from that cautionary tale was presumably obscured by their own substance excesses. One instance saw Roth and Ozzy Osbourne having a cocaine duel that ended with Ozzy missing for hours and a canceled gig. Additionally, Van Halen became known for chugging Jack Daniels from the bottle during their shows. Other members of the band, like Eddie, would treat their burgeoning addictions more quietly. He would often get drunk or do coke privately and use those as his muses. Thus, even the habits of their substance abuse magnified their inherent differences. Roth was the type to get drunk on stage and hit on girls, while Eddie was the kind to sit under the influence in his room with his guitar. Eddie Van Halen constructed the studio of his dreams for the band in 1983 with the help of producer Don Landy, who helped engineer the first few VH albums. He called his studio 5150, and every album the band did from then on was recorded there. That included 1984, the album that propelled the band into superstardom. But that album, and the circumstances surrounding the band at the time, would help push Roth to quit the band, and the actual studio itself was a major reason for his decision. Roth believed Eddie had too much control over the overall creative process in the studio, and it turns out that's partly why Eddie built it. He hated the way previous Van Halen producer Ted Templeman made a record. Templeman loved having the band do cover songs, while Eddie wanted to make his own music. The producer turned a beloved riff of Eddie's into a cover of Dancing in the Street, which was the last straw for Eddie. He no longer wanted to be known for singles or other people's hits. Although Templeman would still help with the making of 1984, it was clear to everyone that he was operating in Eddie's house now. One person who was hearing a lot from Eddie's side of things was Kiss bassist Gene Simmons, who actually got the band their first big break. Eddie kept telling his mentor how he and Roth were increasingly at odds, and around 1982, things apparently got bad enough that, according to Simmons, Eddie began asking to join Kiss. Simmons said that he persuaded him that it wouldn't be a good fit, though. Kiss guitarist Paul Stanley says it never came that close to actually happening, but they both agree that Eddie and David were not getting along at all, and it was becoming public knowledge. The rumors of Eddie nearly joining Kiss are something Eddie downplays, saying that even if the notion had been brought up, he likely would have been joking or under the influence. However, in Roth's autobiography, he seems to think it was a very real episode, and that Simmons was actively trying to recruit Eddie for Kiss, even before 1982. When Eddie jammed with Simmons once in 1977, several of those jams became Kiss songs, and Simmons even made Kiss guitarist Ace Frehley learn one of Eddie's solos note for an album. Roth already had a successful solo debut EP under his belt, 1985's Crazy from the Heat, before he decided to leave Van Halen. But the singer had his sights set on something bigger than music. He wanted to dip his toes into acting, and judging from his charismatic music videos, he might have been able to pull it off. He already had a movie project in mind, a semi-autobiographical tale of a rock star named Dave who gets into all sorts of shenanigans with his manager on the beaches of Dongo Island. Think Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but with bikinis. Roth even kept Eddie Van Halen in mind to do the soundtrack before the band folded officially in the summer of 1985. Eddie declined the offer. Still, storyboards were drawn up and a cast was assembled to begin production. Sadly, CBS, with whom Roth had the movie deal, was changing things up and canceled production of several upcoming movies, including Roth's pet project. He sued CBS and pocketed a settlement, but the movie was never made, and it was too late to save his relationship with Van Halen. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.